this is from the How to Use Your Imagination lecture. And you can listen to this on 100K Watt on his channel. I will put his channel in the chat. Actually, I'm going to give you the whole. This is where I found all of my Neville lectures that we went over on the Indigo Room when we were on Talk Show. And these are still there. You can still download them. You can read them yourself. You can listen to Neville on 100K Watts channel, and it's all, free. He has it up there freely. But one of the things that he was talking about, and he said, once a man said to me, Neville, I love to listen to you talk about imagination, but as I do so, I invariably touch the chair with my fingers and push my feet into the rug just to keep my sense of the reality and the profundity of things. Well, undoubtedly, he is still touching the chair with his fingers and pushing his feet into the rug. And what that one thing is, one paragraph is stating, is that this person could not even conceive of being in his own wonderful human imagination. And so he likes to grip onto the reality of things as they are. And that's okay. Some people like to do that. He said, let me tell you of another one who didn't touch with her fingers and didn't push that foot of hers into the board of the streetcar. It's the story of a young girl just turned 17. It was Christmas Eve, and she is sad of heart, for that year she had lost her father in an accident, and she is returning home to what seemed to be an empty house. She was untrained to do anything, so got herself a job as a waitress. That night, it's quite late, Christmas Eve. It's raining. The car is full of laughing boys and girls home from their Christmas vacation, and she couldn't conceal the tears. Luckily for her, as I said, it was raining, so she stuck her face into the heavens to mingle her tears with the rain. And then, holding the rail of the streetcar, this is what she did. She said, "This is not rain. Why, this is spray from the ocean. And this is not the salt of tears that I taste, for this is the salt of the sea and the wind. And this is not San Diego. This is a ship, and I am coming into the Bay of Samoa." And there she felt the reality of all that she had imagined. She was on a streetcar, it was raining, and she decided that in her imagination, she was not on a streetcar. It was not raining. It was a spray of ocean. It wasn't salt from her tears, but from the ocean. And she was not in San Diego. She was on a ship. Then came the end of the journey, and all are out. Right? Okay, she's getting off the streetcar. 10 days later, this girl received a letter from a firm in Chicago saying that her aunt, several years before, when she sailed for Europe, deposited with them $3,000 with instructions that if she did not return to America, this money should be paid to her niece. They had just received information of the aunt's death and were now acting upon her instructions. 1 month later, this girl sailed for Samoa. As she came into the bay, it was late that night, and there was salt of the sea in the wind. It wasn't raining, but there was spray in the air, and she actually felt what she felt 1 month before. Only this time, she had realized her objective. So the whole record is technique. I want to show you today how to put your wonderful imagination right into the feeling of your wish fulfilled and let it remain there and fall asleep in that state. And I promise you, from my own experience, you will realize the state in which you sleep. If you could actually feel yourself right into the situation of your fulfilled desire and continue therein until you fall asleep, as you feel yourself right into it, remain in it until you give it all the tones of reality, until you give it all the sensory vividness of reality. As you do it in that state, quietly fall into sleep, and in a way you will never know. You could never consciously devise the means that would be employed. You would find yourself moving across a series of events, leading you towards the objective realization of this state. Now, here's a practical technique. The first thing you do, you must know exactly what you want in this world. Now, I don't care if it's one thing, if it's 10,000 things. You must know exactly what you want. When you know exactly what you want, make as lifelike a representation as possible of what you would see and what you would touch and what you would do were you physically present and physically moving in such a state. For example, suppose I wanted a home, but I had no money, but I still know what I want. Without taking anything into consideration, I would make as lifelike a representation of the home that I would like with all the things in it that I would want. And then this night, as I would go to sleep, I would, in a state, a drowsy, sleepy state, the state that borders on sleep. You're not quite asleep yet. You're like, you're in that kind of twilight, sleepy time. I would imagine that I am actually in such a house, that I were to step off the bed, I would step onto the floor of that house. Were I to leave this room, I would enter the room that is adjacent to my imagined room in that house. And while I am touching the furniture and feeling it to be solidly real, and while I am moving from one room to the other in my imaginary house, I would go sound to sleep in that state. And I know that in a way I could not consciously devise, I would realize my house. I have seen it work time and time again. If I wanted a promotion in my business, I would ask myself, what additional responsibilities would be mine were I to be given this great promotion? What would I do? What would I say? What would I see? How would I act? And then in my imagination, I would begin to see and touch and do and act as I would outwardly see, touch, and act were I in that position. If I now desired the mate of my life, were I now in search of some wonderful girl or some wonderful man, what would I actually find myself doing that would imply that I found my state? For instance, suppose now I was a lady. One thing I would definitely do, I would wear a wedding ring. I would take my imaginary hands and I would feel that ring and I would imagine it to be there. And I would keep on feeling it and feeling it until it seemed to me to be solidly real. I would give it all the sensory vividness I am capable of giving anything. And while I'm feeling my imaginary ring, which implies that I am married, I would sleep. So if you know what you want, right? If you know what you want, one of the things that is very, very important is to be sure of that, to know exactly what you want. And that's why I say write it down. Write down what it is that you want to be, do, or have in your experience. Because nothing is going to work if you don't work it. I just want to read this last part. And he says, people are totally unaware of this fantastic power of the imagination, but when man begins to discover this power within him, he never plays the part that he formerly plays. He doesn't turn back and become just a reflector of life. From here on in, he is the affector of life. You are the affector of life. The secret of it is to center your imagination in the feeling of the wish fulfilled and remain there. For in our capacity to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled lies our capacity to live the more abundant life. More of us are afraid to imagine ourselves as important and noble individuals, secure in our contribution of the world, just because at the very moment that we start our assumption, reason and our senses deny the truth of our assumption. We seem to be in the grip of an unconscious urge, which makes us cling desperately to the world of familiar things and resist all that threatens to tear us away from our familiar and seemingly safe moorings. So I'll read the rest of it tomorrow. I do want to encourage you to check that out. If you haven't read it or you haven't listened to it, the link is also there for the actual lecture that Neville's speaking. So you can listen to that as well. Maybe listen to that before you drift off to sleep or whenever you have time. You want to be in a state of what would it feel like if this were true?